Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking an absolute monster of a masterpiece, David Mitchell's Cloud Atlas. Seriously, this book is so complex, so incredibly ambitious and mind-bending that for years people literally called it unfilmable. It completely obliterates the line between highbrow literature and everyday genre fiction. So grab a seat, because we're going to explore the intricate literary and cinematic puzzles Mitchell created, and we're peeling back the layers of this sprawling, interconnected universe together. Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with the Russian doll structure, move on to predation and power, explore rewriting the future, take a look at the film adaptation, and finally wrap up with the Uber novel universe. Let's dive right in. Now, to really get how Cloud Atlas even came to be, we actually have to look at Mitchell's initial inspiration. And honestly, it was surprisingly humble. He didn't exactly sit down with this grand, pretentious plan to write the ultimate modern epic. No, his whole process was really just driven by curiosity. He basically asked himself one simple question: what'll happen if I try this? He just wanted to see, how many narratives he could cram into a single novel in this fractal way, mashing up 19th century historical diaries with hard-boiled crime thrillers and post-apocalyptic sci-fi. It was an experiment. Which brings us to Section 1, the Russian doll structure, and uncovering the ABCDEFDBCA narrative. To pull off an experiment of this magnitude, Mitchell needed a highly specific framework, and he went with a Matryoshka, or a Russian nesting doll structure. Now, this isn't just some clever gimmick, it is a very deliberate structural choice. Think about it. Each individual story is literally interrupted, swallowed up, and consumed by the one that comes next. The narrative climbs all the way up to this apocalyptic center, which we can think of as letters A through F. And then, in the back half of the book, it regurgitates them all back out in reverse order. E, D, C, B, A. Try saying that 5 times fast, right? The sheer scale of the world building here is honestly staggering. As we unpack these nested dolls, we jump through 6 wildly distinct settings and genres. Just look at this timeline. We start out in the 19th century Pacific Ocean with a fairly naive notary. Then, bam, we jump to 1930s Belgium. Next, we're plunged right into a gritty 1970s corporate thriller in California, before pivoting to a present-day vanity publisher who gets trapped in a UK nursing home. Then we fast-forward into a dystopian, heavily consumerist future in Korea, before finally landing in a post-apocalyptic Hawaii. It is a wild ride. So how do you even tie all those completely different worlds together? Well, Mitchell uses a musical analogy right inside the text. In that 1930s storyline, the composer Robert Frobisher writes the Cloud Atlas Sextet. It's a piece featuring 6 interrupted soloists. And just like that piece of music, the 6 narratives of the book are bound together by these recurring motifs. The most famous one? A mysterious comet-shaped birthmark. It's shared by all the protagonists across time, which strongly hints that, hey, maybe they're actually reincarnations of the exact same soul just passing through the ages. All right, moving on to Section 2. Predation and power. The fundamental rule of this world. The weak are meat. To really grasp the heavy philosophical meat of this story, we have to look at Friedrich Nietzsche. The novel is deeply underpinned by his theory of eternal recurrence. This is basically the incredibly bleak idea that the universe, and every single human action within it, is doomed to just repeat itself infinitely. It's like the hourglass of existence is just being flipped over and over again forever. Mitchell uses this concept to dig into the underlying human drive for power, showing how our predatory nature causes us to repeat the exact same atrocities, just in different eras. And what's really fascinating here is the stark contrast Mitchell sets up. On one side, you've got this incredibly grim Nietzschean will to power. It's perfectly voiced by the murderous Dr. Goose, who flat out says the weak are meat, the strong do eat. Pretty bleak, right? But on the flip side, Mitchell counters that heavy nihilism with Adam Ewing's perspective. Ewing sees the exact same evil in the world, but he makes a choice. He actively chooses to fight it by becoming an abolitionist. So Mitchell is basically arguing that yes, history might repeat its horrors, but individual choice is where our hope actually lives. That being said, the novel absolutely does not shy away from showing us exactly how power is maintained. We see humanity exploit itself over and over again. It perfectly illustrates these dark Foucauldian power dynamics. We go from the horrific colonialism and enslavement of the indigenous Moriori people in the 1800s to corporate assassinations at a nuclear plant in the 70s. Then we see this extreme toxic capitalist future where cloned workers, fabricants, are literally fed to one another. And it all culminates in actual cannibalism in post-apocalyptic Hawaii. It's this vicious, ongoing cycle of the strong just consuming the weak. Which leads us to Section 3, Rewriting the Future and Escaping the Scorpion Enclosure. In the 1970s thriller storyline, the journalist Louisa Ray makes this incredibly profound observation about how we humans consume stories. She says that as long as horrors are sealed off from our world, we like to just peer in at them, almost like we're looking at a scorpion enclosure at the zoo. We feel safe. But Mitchell uses this idea to challenge us directly. He doesn't want us, the readers, to just passively peer into this book. He wants us to wake up and realize how the interconnected truths of Cloud Atlas actually reflect our own reality, our own historical cycles, and most importantly, our own personal choices. So how do we actually escape the scorpion enclosure? Well, Mitchell argues that our individual choices actually can alter a supposedly predetermined future. Here's how it works in the book. First, characters read or watch the stories of the people who came before them. Then they reinterpret those historical texts, and that newfound knowledge directly informs the choices they make in the present. And that triggers a massive butterfly effect for the future. An act of kindness or just one brave choice in one era literally ripples forward. It proves that we aren't just helplessly bound to repeat our worst mistakes forever. Let's shift gears to Section 4, the film adaptation and translating the unfilmable. Taking a novel this complex, this incredibly nested and philosophical, and trying to put it on a movie screen honestly seemed like an impossible task. But in 2012, the Wachowskis and Tom Tykwer gave it a shot, creating a highly ambitious and very polarizing adaptation. They took a huge risk right out of the gate by abandoning that strict Russian doll structure. Instead, they constantly cross-cut between the different timelines to make it feel more cinematic. Now, this approach led to some massive triumphs, but also some critical missteps. To highlight the theme of transmigrating souls, they brilliantly cast the exact same actors in multiple roles across the different time periods. But on the flip side, critics were quick to point out things like Tom Hanks's arguably cartoonish accents and highly controversial makeup choices. Specifically, casting Caucasian actors to play Asian characters in the future Soul storyline sparked intense accusations of yellowface. Now, how did the filmmakers respond to that intense backlash? Well, Andy Wachowski stepped up to defend their creative choices, explaining that their intent was actually the exact opposite of racial insensitivity. According to the directors, the whole goal of having the same actor play different races, different genders, and different ages was to visually represent the universality of the human soul. They wanted to show that the true character of the film isn't a specific race or gender, it's just humanity itself, completely transcending physical boundaries. Even with its polarizing reception and its obvious flaws, a lot of film analysts have concluded that this adaptation is still a massive, completely necessary cinematic achievement. Think about it. Transforming this dense, unfilmable text into a visual medium was a monumental undertaking. As one critic so perfectly put it, Hollywood needs ambitious, sweeping failures a whole lot more than it needs rote, safe perfection. Love it or hate it, the film keeps the profound, challenging themes of Mitchell's book alive and kicking in our cultural conversation. All right, bringing it home with Section 5, the Uber novel universe, and building Mitchell's Middle-earth. Let's zoom out from Cloud Atlas for a second. Over the last couple of decades, David Mitchell has essentially been building his own private Middle-earth. His characters constantly bleed across his different books. For instance, Timothy Cavendish, the publisher from Cloud Atlas, he actually first showed up in Mitchell's 1999 debut novel, Ghostwritten. Then you've got characters related to the composer Robert Frobisher popping up in Black Swan Green, and Dr. Marinas. He spans across the bone clacks all the way to Mitchell's 1960s music novel, Utopia Avenue. Basically, every single book he writes is just a new chapter in this massive Uber novel that spans his entire literary career. But here is the really beautiful takeaway. No matter how vast this interconnected universe gets, across all these completely distinct genres, intersecting timelines, and varied mediums, the core remains singular. There is literally just one interconnected human soul sitting at the center of all these works. It is this incredibly powerful reminder that underneath all the chaotic noise of human history, we all share a single, collective existence. Which leaves us right here. Toward the very end of the novel, a character is actually mocked for thinking his small individual actions matter. He's told that his life amounts to absolutely no more than a single drop in a limitless ocean. But then Adam Ewing replies with this: "What is any ocean but a multitude of drops?" So I'll leave you to ponder this. Are your individual choices just insignificant drops? Or are they the very things that ripple outward to shape our entire interconnected future? Thanks for joining me on this explainer today. I'll see you in the next one.